This is the Evil Wizard Cannon. You're watching VGN News. Please hit the like button. You make sure you subscribe. Or I'll come over and I'll take your soul, you humanoids.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into another year in gaming video. In our last episode, we explored 1992, and now it's time to see what 1993 had in store. 1993 was a year of major events across the world. In the US, a van bomb exploded at the World Trade Center, killing 6 and injuring over 1,000. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton was sworn in as the 42nd president, ending 12 years of Republican rule. At the box office, audiences flocked to films like Jurassic Park, Mrs. Doubtfire, Schindler's List, Philadelphia, The Fugitive, and Sleepless in Seattle. Television also saw some iconic premieres: Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Animaniacs, Boy Meets World, Beavis and Butt-Head. The comedy world said goodbye to a classic as Cheers aired its series finale. The music scene was just as vibrant. Hits like Janet Jackson's "That's the Way Love Goes," Meatloaf's "I'd Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That," UB40's "I Can't Help Falling in Love with You," Four Non-Blondes' "What's Up," and Lenny Kravitz's "Are You Gonna Go My Way" dominated the charts. Meanwhile, Janet Jackson released her 7th album Janet, Snoop Dogg debuted with Doggy Style, and Nirvana released their 3rd and final album, In Utero. Sports also had its share of historic moments. The Dallas Cowboys defeated the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 27, winning their first championship in 15 years and marking the start of a dynasty. In the NBA, Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls won their 3rd straight title by beating the Phoenix Suns in the 1993 NBA Finals, though Jordan shocked the world by announcing his retirement just months later. Wrestling fans saw the launch of WWF Monday Night Raw on the USA Network, a show that would become a mainstay of professional wrestling. And while all of this was happening, the video game industry was entering a groundbreaking era. Sega and Nintendo were still battling in the console wars, but 1993 marked the rise of 3D gaming. Arcade classics like Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat dominated the scene, both releasing sequels that pushed fighting games further. Another arcade title would soon take fighting to an entirely new level. On the home console front, Nintendo introduced a bold new IP that redefined gameplay on the Super NES, proving that the 16-bit era still had innovation left to offer. Meanwhile, 3D graphics were slowly making their way from the arcade to home systems, setting the stage for a revolution in how games would look and play in the years to come. So, that's a snapshot of gaming in 1993. 1. The rise of 3D. While Sega and Nintendo were still battling for 16-bit supremacy, it was clear that 16-bit technology wouldn't last forever. Both companies knew the next generation would be 3D-based, and 1993 marked the beginning of that shift. Games like Wolfenstein 3D showed that video games were about to become bigger and more immersive than ever. 3D graphics allowed players to explore worlds in new ways, moving characters freely in 3 dimensions instead of just side to side. This opened the door to more expansive gameplay experiences. At the same time, the rise of CD-based technology provided developers with far more storage, enabling larger worlds, higher quality soundtracks, and richer storytelling. Both Nintendo and Sega were laying the groundwork for their next-generation consoles, preparing for a future where 3D gaming would dominate. 2. The 3DO. While Sega and Nintendo were still dominating the 16-bit era, the next generation was quietly arriving with the 3DO. In 1993, Panasonic released this new console, designed by Trip Hawkins, the founder of Electronic Arts. The 3DO was billed as the first 3D-based console, capable of advanced graphics that promised to take gaming to the next level. However, the 3DO faced major hurdles. Its launch price of $599.99, essentially $600, was far too expensive for most gamers in 1993. On top of that, the library of games was underwhelming, and the system struggled to justify its high cost. It was widely regarded as dead on arrival. Luckily, this early attempt at 3D gaming paved the way for future success. Just 2 years later, Sony would release the PlayStation, a console that truly brought 3D gaming into the mainstream and changed the industry forever. 3. Sega vs. Nintendo. The Console Wars. In 1993, the console wars between Sega and Nintendo were in full swing, but the balance was shifting. While the Super NES remained Nintendo's top-selling console for the 2nd year in a row, the company was starting to lose its core audience. Gamers who grew up in the 1980s were now teens or young adults, moving on to Sega for more mature, edgy experiences. Sega, on the other hand, was capturing the older gamer demographic, teenagers, college students, and adults, while Nintendo increasingly focused on younger children. This shift gave the Sega Genesis the edge, making it the top-selling console of 1993. Nintendo's traditional fanbase was drifting away, but this period also set the stage for the company to grow up in the following years, adjusting its strategy for a changing audience. 4. The arcade scene. Mortal Kombat 2 and Super Street Fighter 2. 1993 was a golden year for arcades. Two of the biggest fighting game franchises, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2, were dominating the scene, each releasing major updates that pushed the genre to new heights. Following the success of the original, Mortal Kombat 2 hit arcades and took the series to a darker, bloodier level than ever. Fans were introduced to new fighters like Jax, Kung Lao, Katana, Mileena, and Baraka, while returning favorites such as Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sub-Zero, and Sonya Blade returned. Even the villain Shang Tsung became younger and playable, adding a fresh twist to the classic roster. Meanwhile, Street Fighter 2 got a major upgrade with Super Street Fighter 2, which brought enhanced graphics, updated sound, and smooth new visuals. The game also introduced 4 new characters, Cammy, DJ, T-Hawk, and Fei Long, adding depth and variety to the beloved roster. Both Mortal Kombat 2 and Super Street Fighter 2 dominated arcade charts in 1993, proving that the arcade scene was still alive and thriving, even as home consoles were starting to prepare for the 3D revolution. 5. Virtua Fighter, the first 3D fighting game. While Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat 2 ruled the 2D fighting scene, Virtua Fighter took the genre to the next level. Developed by Sega for the arcade, it became the first fully 3D fighting game, breaking new ground in both gameplay and visuals. Instead of the traditional side-scrolling view, Virtua Fighter allowed players to move their characters freely in 3 dimensions. Gamers could take control of fighters like Akira Yuki, Wolf Hockfield, and Sarah Bryant, each with unique moves and strategies. Virtua Fighter didn't just innovate, it paved the way for future 3D fighting games like Tekken and Soul Calibur, setting the standard for the next generation of arcade and console fighters. This was truly the beginning of 3D fighting games, and it showed what the future of gaming could look like. 6. Star Fox. Taking the Super NES to the next level. While both the Super NES and Sega Genesis were 16-bit consoles, Nintendo had a secret advantage, the Super FX chip, a 3D-capable processor that could bring polygonal graphics to life. One game that showcased this technology was Star Fox, created by Shigeru Miyamoto. Players took control of Fox McCloud and his team as they battled the evil Andross, trying to save the galaxy. Star Fox wasn't just a fun game, it introduced 3D gameplay on a 16-bit console, a major technological breakthrough at the time. The Super FX chip proved that even a 16-bit system could deliver 3D experiences. Following Star Fox, Nintendo would continue this trend with titles like Donkey Kong Country, cementing its position as the first console to successfully bring 3D gaming to home systems. 7. Mortal Kombat comes home, Nintendo left out. While Mortal Kombat 2 was dominating arcades in 1993, the original Mortal Kombat finally made its way to home consoles in a launch event dubbed Mortal Monday. Arcade fans were thrilled, they could now play their favorite fighters at home. But there was a major twist. The Sega Genesis version included a secret code that unlocked the full blood, gore, and fatalities, making it the definitive home experience. Meanwhile, the Super NES version had superior graphics, but Nintendo left out the blood and fatalities, sticking to its family-friendly approach. Initially, Nintendo expected praise from parents, but instead, the decision backfired. Millions of gamers complained that the iconic finishing moves were missing. As a result, the Genesis version outsold the Super NES, cementing its spot as Sega's top-selling game of 1993. This was a huge blow for Nintendo, and it taught them a valuable lesson: they couldn't ignore the franchise's core fans. When Mortal Kombat 2 hit home consoles the following year, Nintendo made sure not to repeat the mistake. In other words, Sega scored a fatality, and Nintendo got burned. 8. The rise of video game violence. 1993 was also the year that video games began to grow up. Titles like Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, and lethal enforcers pushed the boundaries of violence and realism, proving that games were no longer just for kids, they were increasingly aimed at older audiences. This shift sparked a national debate. In 1993, the first of two congressional hearings on video games took place in the United States. Lawmakers discussed the depiction of violence and sexual content in games, their potential influence on children, and whether the government should step in to regulate the industry. That same year, the video game industry introduced its first rating system, similar to movie ratings, to help guide parents on what games were appropriate for children. But Congress wasn't satisfied. They gave the industry a choice: self-regulate or face government regulation. The industry obviously preferred to regulate itself, and this pressure ultimately led to the creation of the Entertainment Software Association, ESA, the following year, which established a formal rating system for video games. 1993 marked the beginning of a new era. Games were becoming more realistic, more mature, and more controversial, setting the stage for the future of the medium. 9. Nintendo teams up with Silicon Graphics. By 1993, Nintendo knew the Super NES wouldn't last forever and had to start planning for the next generation. That year, they teamed up with Silicon Graphics, a company famous for creating cutting-edge 3D graphics technology used in movies like Jurassic Park, which helped pioneer CGI in Hollywood. This partnership was aimed at building Nintendo's next-gen console, originally called Project Reality, which would eventually become the Nintendo 64. The collaboration allowed Nintendo to harness advanced 3D technology, preparing them to compete in a future where 3D gaming was about to dominate. And speaking of 3D, it was clear that 1993 was the year gaming was starting to evolve into something much bigger, more immersive, and more realistic than ever before. 10. The formation of Sony Computer Entertainment. 2 years earlier, Nintendo had planned to partner with Sony to create a CD-based add-on for the Super NES. However, Nintendo abruptly switched alliances to Philips, leaving Sony out in the cold, a major blow to the company. Sony didn't give up. They approached Sega about creating a next-gen console, but Sega Japan rejected the idea, choosing to go its own way. That left Sony with three options: team up with another company, exit the gaming market, or build a console themselves. In 1993, Sony chose the boldest path. They formed Sony Computer Entertainment, their own video game division, and began working with publishers to develop what would eventually become the PlayStation. This move would not only launch one of the most successful consoles in history but also prove that Nintendo's rejection was a mistake that would haunt them for years. 11. Doom and the birth of multiplayer. While Wolfenstein 3D in 1992 laid the foundation for first-person shooters, 1993 saw the release of Doom, a game that would redefine the genre. Developed by id Software, Doom introduced fast-paced, 3D-like gameplay, advanced graphics, and an immersive soundtrack, pushing the FPS experience to new heights. But Doom wasn't just about single-player action, it also introduced multiplayer deathmatches, allowing players to compete against each other over local networks. This was the beginning of online competitive gaming, setting the stage for the multiplayer experiences we take for granted today. In many ways, Doom built on what Wolfenstein started but expanded it into a social, competitive, and more intense experience, showing that 3D shooters could be bigger, faster, and multiplayer-ready. 12. NBA Jam. Taking basketball games to the next level. While Mortal Kombat 2 and Street Fighter 2 dominated the arcade fighting scene in 1993, Midway released a game that would redefine sports video games, NBA Jam. Unlike traditional 5-on-5 basketball games, NBA Jam was a fast-paced 2-on-2 arcade basketball game featuring NBA-licensed teams and digitized likenesses of real players. The gameplay was over the top and exaggerated. Players could jump impossibly high, perform slam dunks that defied physics, and shove or elbow opponents freely. No fouls, free throws, or violations, aside from goaltending and the 24-second shot clock. One of the game's most iconic features was the "on fire" mode. If a player scored consecutive baskets, their character would ignite, allowing for spectacular slam dunks, including shattering the backboard. Imagine playing as Shaquille O'Neal and performing a move like "Sha-la-la-la-boom" to break the backboard. Insane. NBA Jam became one of the most popular arcade games of 1993, elevating sports games to a whole new level. Its success paved the way for other exaggerated sports titles, like NHL Hitz and NFL Blitz, showing that arcade sports could be just as thrilling and over the top as fighting games. 13. Nintendo hits Hollywood with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. By 1993, Mario had become one of the most popular video game icons, dominating the gaming market. That year, Nintendo decided to take their lovable plumber to Hollywood, releasing a live-action Super Mario Bros. Movie. The film starred Bob Hoskins as Mario and John Leguizamo as Luigi. In the story, Mario and Luigi travel to a dystopian future called Dino Haddon, loosely inspired by Dino Land, to rescue Princess Daisy from the evil King Koopa. Fans were excited. After all, a movie based on a beloved video game seemed like a dream come true. Unfortunately, the results were disappointing. The movie bore little resemblance to the games, adopting a dark, Blade Runner-inspired aesthetic instead of capturing the colorful charm of the Mushroom Kingdom. It was widely regarded as one of the worst movies of 1993, and it became a cautionary tale for video game adaptations. Mario fans would have to wait 30 years for a proper movie adaptation, the 2023 animated Super Mario Bros. Movie, which finally honored the game's story, characters, and world. In 1993, excitement for Mario on the big screen didn't quite pay off, but it was an important milestone in video game history, and proof that Nintendo was thinking beyond consoles. 14. Super Mario All-Stars, the first true remaster. 1993 gave Mario fans something truly special, the first full remaster of the classic NES games. Nintendo released Super Mario All-Stars for the Super NES, bundling 3, later 4, of the original Mario titles with 16-bit graphics, enhanced sound, and updated gameplay. For the first time, fans could play Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros., The Lost Levels, Super Mario Bros. 2, and Super Mario Bros. 3 in stunning 16-bit detail. This wasn't just a visual upgrade, it gave a new generation of gamers who had never experienced the NES originals a chance to enjoy them on the Super NES. One of the biggest selling points was The Lost Levels, a game that had never been released in the US before. For American gamers, this made Super Mario All-Stars the definitive Mario collection and a perfect bridge between the NES era and the more advanced 16-bit Super NES era. 15. Sonic the Hedgehog hits the mainstream. Just like Mario made his way into cartoons in the late 1980s, Sega pushed Sonic the Hedgehog into the mainstream in 1993. That year, Dick Entertainment released 2 different Sonic animated series, bringing the speedy blue hedgehog to TV audiences. The first, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, aired in syndication and was a lighthearted, gag-driven comedy. The second, simply called Sonic the Hedgehog, aired on ABC Saturday mornings and took a darker, more action-focused approach, featuring Sonic leading a group of freedom fighters against Dr. Robotnik. This version quickly became a fan favorite. While The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog lasted only 1 year, the ABC series ran for 2 seasons, ending on a cliffhanger that was never resolved due to cancellation. Despite its short run, it proved that Sonic had arrived in the mainstream, solidifying his place alongside Mario as a cultural icon with his own animated presence. 1993 was a pivotal year in gaming. The rise of 3D gaming set the stage for the future, while Mortal Kombat 2 and Super Street Fighter 2 dominated the arcades. Nintendo began losing its core audience, while Sega gained ground with older gamers. On the home console front, Star Fox pushed 16-bit gaming into 3D, Doom broke new ground as a first-person shooter and laid the foundation for online multiplayer, and NBA Jam redefined sports games with its over-the-top arcade action. It was a year of innovation, competition, and change, truly groundbreaking for the video game industry. Next time, we'll dive into 1994, when Sony would make its PlayStation debut in Japan, and Nintendo would bring back an iconic character 14 years later in a brand new game. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. As always, folks, we'll see you next time.